Okay, I wanted to share my process for how to make torqs, which is my redesign of the S-staff. At the end of the video, I'll talk a little about why I call them torqs, if you're interested. I'm just going to get right into it. Okay, so you need a template first. This is just like a 2x12, I think. And you can get a paper template of the basic shape, I think. There's like vectors, and you can print it out. And then you can trace, or you can just borrow friends and trace the outer shape of really any variety. What I've done over time is make it smaller because these props are like really heavy. They're double thick, and they're pretty heavy. It's a workout when you have a few of them going, so I recommend maybe making smaller ones. You also need 2 templates, and I'll explain more when we get to the rounded bit part. But basically, you just need, if you want to do it in 4 parts, you could do this part and this part, but you need, this part is the same as this part, but there's a handedness in the relationship to these 2 parts. That's called chiral or chiral. So after you draw a shape out, you take one of these bits that doesn't have a bearing on it, and very carefully by hand you go around it. And this is the hardest part. As you're going, you'll hit a bump and it goes and then it ruins it. So very time consuming, that part, and it takes a lot of keeping it steady. So after you've cut this bit, I recommend, this isn't a big enough board for what you want, but I recommend taking a board like this and then just sort of quickly with a circular saw, just cutting out the bits that are definitely like outside of the parts, so that it's just easier to work with. And then you always want to have everything clamped down when you're working with it. You take a clamp and you clamp all the way through to the table, the board, the template. And I didn't learn this trick till later, but these little wire nails, you put a few of these little wire nails right in the middle, of the template, like this spot or this spot, just somewhere where you're definitely not going to hit it with the router blade. And then with the board on top, you use one of these, which has a bearing on it. You take the router and you go along the tunnel that you've made. And so as you're going, unfortunately, you get to points where there's a clamp, so you have to move the clamps around. Depending on what sort of shapes you're working with, these kind of clamps are really useful because you can move them really quick. But these ones are really solid. I recommend these. And making them tight. So after you've cut out the shape with the straight bit, well, let me mention one thing about this first. So the worst thing when doing this is when this bearing bit hits the bottom of the template here, because this bearing will get hot, it'll fly off, and then it'll just gash into the template's room, make a hole in the template. So you definitely want to be sure of these 2 things. Cut this tunnel as low as you think the board can hold together, and make sure before you start cutting with the router that this level is not going to touch in any way. So you want this whole thing at the same depth, and you don't want there to be any rubbing, because this thing is spinning really fast. It gets hot, and that bearing just flips off. And these are expensive. And also, I recommend good bits because it'll save you time and money. And cheap bits, they won't even make out one of these without getting wrecked. Maybe. So after you've cut the shape out, put on the round a bit. Put it into the shape and make sure that it's at the right point where you want it to be rounded. And then you do the same thing with the rounded bit. This bit is pretty easy, but you want to make sure to not cut the tips off and not cut into it weirdly, because it's a little bit tricky in certain ways. So after you have this flat piece, cut the other flat piece. And that it's a very tricky thing, getting both mirror templates to be the same shape. You could rub some graphite maybe on one, and then or paint. I'm not sure. There's probably a good way to press maybe ink from one onto another one so that it's exact. You should experiment with that if you're doing this. So then you have two shapes. One is this whole upper part, and one is the whole lower part. You glue them together, and then what I did is I viced a belt sander down upside down, and then just ground on it so that all the edges came down. It takes forever to do it by hand. These ones have gotten really nice because I've sanded them and repainted them 4 or 5 times, 3 times, and every time they get a little bit better. But you'll end up when you wood glue them both sides together, you'll have some edges that stick up here and there. So, it takes a lot of work to get them flush with each other and nice looking, and then it takes a lot more work if you want to be sort of OCD about balancing them, which I have been with these ones, and they feel really good. And hopefully all these issues will just not be a big deal after I've got a CAD design and I'm using a shop bot for this, which will hopefully be soon. It's pretty challenging doing this, to be honest. Another thing is I'm refinishing my props for this season right now. So you take little bits of painter's tape, and then you cut out with the scissors these lines at different points. You just use a little card or whatever to get the same distance, and then just draw a line here and then go along it with this fabric cutter or collage cutter. I'm not sure which it was. And then paint it. You've already painted a couple base layers of something, and then you paint a couple layers over the top of it. And the lines come out pretty nice. And I like to take these off when it's still a little bit wet so that it doesn't have as high a chance of peeling all the paint off. But I waited because I was making this video. So hopefully it'll work out. Okay, so I have a lot of fun with this stuff, and I do it because I enjoy it. And this will probably be the model, close to the model that I'm doing for machining, and you'll be able to, in in this case, you'll be able to, you know, just tape them together. Just some electric tape and then some grip tape, and then if you wanted to travel with them, you can take them apart. And it is just that these parts might be a little bit vulnerable, but this is like travel, which I can't use laptops anymore for what I do, so this is what I'm going to be doing for myself, and then I'm going to be maybe finding an engineer to help me with some connectors that have two metal bits, and you screw them together, and you can change a bit in the middle with where the screws in, so that when you screw them together, they end up planar, properly planar. But it's really tricky. I thought for years about the solution for this,